Tonight on the All-Night Drive-In Picture Show.
Don't be alarmed, ladies. It's only me. There's a rumor some of the campers are coming down here for midnight swims. Well, if I catch any of them swimming, they'll be in pretty hot water, I can tell you. What are you doing around here?
Then...
And when did this big event happen?
2 years ago at the drive-in. He said he'd marry me if I took off all my clothes.
So, what happened?
I told him I was too young to get married.
And now, here are your projectionists. Almost to the end of the restraining order, Ryan Mason and Charles Wood.
Welcome to the All-Night Drive-In Picture Show. I'm Ryan. That's Charles.
Hi.
Let's go.
Attention patrons. The movies discussed on this podcast will be spoiled from start to finish. If you wish to experience these cinematic gems visually, please do so before continuing with this episode. We will be right here when you return. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.
And now, please enjoy our featured presentation.
Military hijinks plus carnivorous fish equals exploitation. This is Piranha.
Who could have imagined they were there? Who could have predicted they would attack? And now, who would survive? Piranha, they're here.
No! You bitch! Stay back!
Piranha, they're hungry.
What's the matter with you?
Piranha, they're unstoppable.
Stop that! Hey, keep your hand out of the water.
What's wrong with the water?
The water is filled with carnivorous fish.
Piranha, they call them the devilfish because wherever they go, hell waits below.
They breed like flies. There'll be no way to stop them.
Piranha. They're here. They're hungry. They'll eat you alive. Who can stop them?
The film opens with a slow pan across a weathered sign that reads Military Test Site, Restricted Area, No Trespassing. A couple of night hikers, Barbara and David, played by Janie Squire and Roger Richmond, are moving through the woods when they stumble upon a fence that holds the warning sign. They immediately ignore the sign and shimmy under the fence. They come across a retention pond and Barbara wants to jump in and clean off. David isn't sure rinsing off in a retention pond in a military test site is a good idea. Imagine that. I kind of thought the same thing, but Barbara essentially calls him a pussy, pushes him into the drink, strips naked, and dives in. Something bites David as he accuses Barbara of snacking on him while she swims underwater. She tells him he's paranoid and challenges him to a race across the pond. The race is on and Barbara takes the lead. David slows down and begins to get bitten repeatedly. Before David can say, "I told you so," he's dragged underwater and devoured. Barbara would become a meal shortly afterward. The sound of screaming awakens a man in another building. After the opening credits, we're in an airport, and Maggie McGowan, played by Heather Menzies, is playing a Jaws arcade game while her boss, Earl Lyon, played by Richard Deacon, rents a Jeep for her to pick up at her destination, Indian Springs. She's a skip tracer and has been hired to find the missing hikers. She says she can find anything except her airline ticket. Earl has it in his pocket. And then we meet Jack, played by Keenan Wynn, and his dog Brandy, who is a fine girl.
You're a fine girl.
They hike up to meet the star of our film, Paul Grogan, played by Bradford Dillman. Jack comes bearing gifts, a red wagon full of hard liquor. Paul asks if Jack misses selling plastic fruit. Jack says no. The river gives him all he needs in life. He also has Brandy, who's a fine girl.
You're a fine girl. I gotta say here, I love Keenan Wynn. And I guess that he was like stone deaf on this movie. They were constantly having to like yell direction to him and stuff because he couldn't hear for shit.
What else was he in?
He was in a ton of stuff. Probably my favorite was his part as Yost in Point Blank. He's kind of like Lee Marvin's handler in that movie.
Yeah.
Love that movie. Someday we're going to talk about that movie, although I don't know how we would cover it because it's such a mind-bending movie. But I mean, like he, won an Emmy for a part in Policewoman, and he was in Doctor Strangelove, Anna Get Your Gun. The guy had been around.
Yeah.
In the 70s, it seemed like he started doing lower budget stuff. And I think we kind of saw this when we talked about Richard Burton in Absolution. Like you see these actors, Lee Marvin, Richard Burton, Keenan Wynn, Mickey Rooney. As you get into the 70s, you see them starting to do some of this lower budget stuff. And like looking back on it, you think to yourself, how the hell does a guy who was in Dr. Strangelove end up in Bonnie's Kids or end up in Piranha or whatever? But then I think, well, what's Robert De Niro been up to?
Right.
Not every movie that Robert De Niro does is The Irishman.
Yeah.
He's the one thing about this movie that I'm excited to see. And once he's gone, I'm just going to spoil this. I kind of don't give a shit anymore. But apparently on this movie, Wynn would consistently yell at people to get out of his eye line.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, he was deaf. It was because he had tinnitus really bad. They had to yell to him to give him direction, but he was also yelling at other people. There was a production manager named Tom Jacobson on this movie, and pretty much no matter where Jacobson was, Wynn would look at him and yell at him to get out of his eye line. The other thing I want to talk about, like back at the airport scene, apparently that was the Burbank airport, and it wasn't closed while they were filming there.
Oh, wow.
All those people in the background, none of them signed releases, and they all, I don't know, may or may not have realized that they were being shot into a movie. I mean, you could not do that today. Really?
No.
Unless you were shooting on like an iPhone or something. I don't think you could get by with that today.
And the nod to Jaws with the video game was cute.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Like just kind of embracing the whole idea of being a knockoff up front. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
They give a nod to Jaws like that, but apparently the original screenwriter, not John Sayles, but the writer before, couldn't figure out how to get the kids into the water. So he created this situation where there was a forest fire that rousted a bear that then chased the kids into the water, and that's how they got in there to be eaten up by the piranha. And I'm just kind of like, okay, so the Jaws video game is in the movie, which might be a Sayles thing, might be a Dante thing or whatever, but apparently the guy hadn't seen Jaws because he couldn't get kids in the water. I don't know. It seems a little suspect to me, but... Yeah. I think Dante might have been talking about that on the commentary. Another thing he brought in the commentary was that the clerk at the airport, her name was Amy Jones. She went on to write Mystic Pizza and Beethoven and Indecent Proposal.
No kidding.
Yeah, and she was the writer, producer, director of Summer Party Massacre. So, yeah.
Nice.
I like how these... like little Corman movies, they have all these people in them that end up doing all these weird, crazy, different types of movies.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they have like a bit part in it or whatever.
Maggie travels up the mountain in her rented Jeep and manages to overheat the engine. She travels the rest of the way on foot and finds her destination, Paul's house. Paul's having a nice piece of fish when she knocks on his door.
It's open.
Paul Grogan? Hi, I'm Maggie McGowan. I work for a skip tracing company.
What's that?
We find missing people.
Did my ex-wife send you?
No. I'm looking for a pair of teenage kids. Some friends of theirs said that they might have gone backpacking up here.
Well, I haven't seen them. You talked to sheriff's people?
They said it was a big mountain.
You're right, it is.
Well, I figured they may have followed along the river. Are there any places to swim near here?
Well, if they drowned, they'd be swept down at the dam, you see. So you're starting at the wrong end.
Boy, you're the wrong end, all right. Look, am I interrupting something? I mean, this is kind of important.
Hey, you cooled your jets, lady.
I didn't axe murder your young couple. I can't help you. I haven't seen them.
Are there any other shacks up here?
Cabins. This is a cabin.
Well, are there any more of them? Any places where they might be holed up?
Well, there's an old fella named Jack. Has a place downriver a bit, but he's not with them. And there was some kind of Army test site way up the mountain, but that closed down 5-6 years ago.
Come on, let's go.
Go where?
You're taking me up there.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Why would the Hertz people give her such a jalopy of a Jeep?
I don't know.
I mean, that Jeep, I think the windshield's cracked in it or something, right? Like, it
right,
was
something, yeah.
It was messed up, like, from the beginning.
Yeah.
I would take a look at that and I would say, hey, Amy, document all this stuff because I don't want to have to pay for this when I bring it back, you know?
Right. No kidding.
I mean,
Jeeps are meant for rugged terrain, and here she is. She can't even get up this hill.
Yeah.
Without the thing overheating.
She can't get up the hill. And, of course, like, returning this thing I don't think is going to be a big deal for her.
Smash cut to the next scene where Paul is a passenger in Maggie's cooled-off Jeep. They end up at the test site. Maggie strikes a padlock on the gate with the butt end of a hatchet. She pops the lock and grins at Paul, who rolls his eyes because he's a peach and fun to be around. Paul takes nips at a canteen with what one can only assume is some of Grandpa's cough medicine. Maggie yells for David and Barbara as she swiftly moves through the site. She finds a necklace next to the retention pond that has a pendant with the initials BR on it. They enter a building that houses a lab. They find a live rabbit and a warm cup of coffee. Seems the site isn't closed after all. As they move about the lab, looking at jars of animals and formaldehyde, and a small lizard-like stop-motion animated creature lurks behind some machinery.
All right.
Right away, I'm like, what the hell?
Exactly. And apparently they said that they included that to show that the movie doesn't take itself too seriously. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, but it never comes back.
Right.
It's just here, and then it's gone.
Yeah. The creature looks like kind of like Jabba the Hutt's Rancor, only in miniature form.
I mean, I guess what they were originally going to do was they were going to have that thing come back at the end and be like this giant, like a giant version of it. And it would have this thing like attacking the Santa Monica Pier or something. And they were just like, yeah, no, we can't afford that.
No.
So they ended up not doing it.
You know, Corman right away is like, no.
Yeah,
You're lucky you're getting a miniature one.
Corman's like, you want to do what to where? Nah,
They see another mutated-looking creature in a tank full of water. Paul is ready to get the hell out of there, and he ain't wrong. Maggie isn't ready to leave, though, and finds a couple of backpacks. She wants to drain the pond. She finds the drain switch and pulls it. Behind them, Dr. Robert Hoke, played by Kevin McCarthy, of UHF fame, yells at them and tries to turn the switch off with his cane.
Wait a second. UHF.
Yeah, Weird Al Yankovic classic from the 80s, yes. UHF.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it. I actually got caught by the cops making out behind Gold's Gym when I was supposed to be seeing that movie. So, Kevin McCarthy, man, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, yeah, he's in that too, isn't he?
Thank you for joining us on the All Night Drive-In Picture Show. We appreciate your patronage. Oh, God.
No, he's done a lot. He's done a lot of great stuff, but UHF is where I was first introduced to him, I believe. So that's why I remember it so.
But who plays the Doom Prophet better than Kevin McCarthy?
It's true.
And like that guy, he could just be the Doom Prophet.
Oh, yeah.
But, God, UHF. Oh, my God, dude.
It's a great movie. You should try it out. It's hilarious.
Yeah, we should talk about it sometime.
Okay. Paul and Maggie fight with the doctor. Hoke begins to choke Paul with his cane, but Maggie hits him over the head with the stone several times before finally knocking him out. The mini Rancor looks on from the shadows.
McCarthy did strangle him, for real.
Oh, really?
Like, there was some method acting going on there. Some real shit, and he did strangle that dude, Dillman.
He's like, it's a Corman film.
Yeah, right. We have a stop-motion puppet watching us.
This isn't Scorsese, you asshole.
Yeah. And even if it were.
Outside, water drains from a pipe. Paul sticks his hand in and tastes it because why not?
What a fucking idiot.
I know. It's salt water. Maggie asks where it drains to. Paul says this was a fish hatchery before the military took it over, and it likely drains to the river. In the empty pond, they see the bones of a dog, but no human bones. They hear the Jeep fire up, and Paul exclaims,
"Oh, shit."
I guess that the director of photography refused to get on the hood. He was originally supposed to get on the hood of the car to shoot that when McCarthy was driving, but he refused to because he thought McCarthy was insane. But then from what Davidson said, this guy Anderson, the cinematographer, he ended up driving his rental car into the Holiday Inn pool at the wrap party. So I don't know who exactly is the crazy man here when it comes to vehicles.
Maggie left the keys in the Jeep, and Hoke, still fuzzy from the concussion, drives off. He passes out at the wheel and flips the Jeep. He doesn't die, and Paul marvels that he's indestructible. When Hoke comes to, it's evident that the pooch has been screwed.
Easy. Easy now. Easy. Easy.
Razor teeth.
What's razor teeth?
You drained the pond?
Yes, we found...
You let them out!
Let who out?
You okay?
Doc,
what's he doing?
You don't know what you've done. Untie me! Untie me, I've got...
The question is what you've done, mister.
What, Hope? You don't know. They breed like flies. There'll be no way to stop them.
Would you talk sense, damn it? Now, what about those kids?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Oh, Mother of God, they'll kill us. They'll kill all of us.
Okay, mister, listen. They're gonna sweat it out of you in time.
They'll kill us. What have we done?
They've taken Hoke back to Paul's cabin somehow. Maggie says Hoke is afraid someone will kill him, and old macho dick Paul says he'll do it if Hoke gets out of line. Maggie asks if Paul began drinking before or after his divorce. Paul gets belligerent. She asks Paul if she can sit at the end of the couch he's sitting on. He allows her to do so. She begins to probe.
How long were you married?
10 years. She was just 17 when we eloped in her father's car. And we thought we had the world by the balls.
Where did you live?
In town. I worked in a smelting operation downriver. Then the government closed us down and said we were killing too many fish. They gave it to the Army, and the Army sold it to some resort outfit. So you know that somebody was making a bundle somewheres along the line.
How do you make a living now?
Oh, back pay, unemployment. I'm gonna have to go to work come September. Yeah. Keep my daughter in saddle shoes.
Does your daughter live with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You're so tense.
Hmm? I don't know. Guess I'm not used to being around people.
That's obvious. I've been trying to hint my way under the covers for 5 minutes now.
You are really something.
Can I sit on the couch? Yes, you may.
Yeah. Mother, it was like, Mother, may I?
Yeah.
What the hell's happening? This is the miracle of editing right here, this scene. Because originally, this is not Paul's house. Like, it's made to seem like it's Paul's house.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually Jack's house, Keenan Wynn's character. And this scene actually took place after they found Keenan Wynn dead.
Mm-hmm.
But Dante felt like it made them look insensitive to be acting this way in this scene after they had found Jack dead.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Jack's gonna die, right? I mean, I think if there are good calls in this movie, that was one of them.
The next morning, they tried to figure out how to get Hoke back to town without her Jeep. Paul says he read his daughter Huckleberry Finn, and they build a raft much like the one in the story. He says that they'll take Hoke on the raft to the dam, where there will likely be a ranger that can help them. She asks if it will work, and he says it should, but they never tried it because his daughter's afraid of the river.
Which is a magical reason to send her to camp.
Yeah.
Because at camp, they never do shit in the river, right? I mean,
right. Cut to Paul's daughter Susie at summer camp, sitting on the dock dipping her toes in the lake. Her camp counselor Laura, played by Melody Thomas, tells her not to worry. She just has to swim to the water marker and back. If not, she won't get her water badge. Susie says she's afraid of what's in the water, fishes and shit. Laura says that the fish in the lake feed off of underwater plants and aren't interested in her fingers or her toes. The camp leader, Mr. Dumont, played by Paul Bartel from Chopping Mall, brings Laura some mail.
Letter for you, Dickinson. That same boy.
Oh, thank you.
Still haven't tackled your solo swim, Grogan?
No, sir. Oh, she's kind of afraid of things in the water.
Things? What things? Fish? People eat fish, Grogan. Fish don't eat people. Do you want to be the one to lose the camp competition for the minnows? Of course you don't.
She's doing really well in handicrafts.
Handicrafts? Handicrafts don't take any nerve, any intestinal fortitude. You know what that means, Grogan?
Yes, sir. Guts.
Right.
Is there any mail for her?
Nope. Skunked again, Grogan. Grogan! Guts!
Come on, let's go. We'll play some Monopoly. Why don't we try it in an inner tube tomorrow? Huh? Come on.
Susie looks back at the water with trepidation. Jack and Brandy, who's a fine girl.
That's okay. That's enough. Stop that. Just stop
Sorry,
it.
sir. Okay, gotcha. Are sitting on a dock. Jack is fishing and he is tore up from the floor up. He slurs his words telling Brandy about another dog he used to have as his feet dangle in the water. Brandy senses trouble in the water. Suddenly, Jack's feet are attacked and the water runs red. He screams in agony as the razor-toothed fish tear at his piggies. Paul and Maggie have Hoke on a raft and they are rolling, rolling, rolling on the river.
This is like a fucking K-Tel album.
All the hits, folks, all the hits. Maggie lets her hand drag the water, but Hoke sternly tells her to keep her hand out of the soup. Maggie wants to know why, and Hoke tells her that the river is now filled with piranha, or as he pronounces it, piranha.
Which is the correct pronunciation. I mean,
piranha.
Piranha.
Paul doesn't believe him, and Hoke says that when they drain the pond at the test site, they let the fish into the stream. Maggie reminds Paul of the dog skeleton.
Maggie reminds Paul of the dog skeleton. Paul should remind Maggie that she pulled the lever.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a key moment.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably, that probably started some of this.
At this point, it's a little more important than the dog skeleton.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of dogs, they approach Jack's dock and Brandy is barking her full head off. They pull the raft up to the dock and find old Jack on the bank, feet shredded to the bone and bled out. A sad Paul goes to find a shovel, saying Jack wouldn't want to be buried in town.
Why would they bury Jack in town? Are they going to bury him in the town square?
Right.
He didn't want to be buried in town. Okay.
And don't you need to let somebody know that he's dead before you bury him?
Yeah, what the hell? Like, Are they just not going to call the authorities and say, this guy was killed probably by piranha?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Back at camp, Susie and another counselor, Betsy, played by Belinda Belaski from Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, throws darts at a photo of Dumont. They're trying to think of different excuses to keep Susie from having to swim for her water badge. Poison ivy won't work as an excuse, and she's too young to have her period.
Okay.
Betsy grabs a red marker from an art box and draws a wound on her knee. She says they can find someone to take her place in the swimming race. She'll bandage Susie's knee, and Dumont will never be the wiser.
Because Dumont is an idiot.
Yeah.
Who will not ask to see under this mysterious wound. And if he does, he'll see a red marker spot. And obviously, he can't tell the difference.
Right.
Between a gash on a kid's knee and a Crayola marker spot. Good Lord.
This is not foam latex, folks.
John Sayles wrote this script, man.
I know. That blows my mind.
I mean, granted, it was like one of his first scripts, but fuck, dude. God.
Meanwhile, a father and son are in a canoe on the river. The father's trying to untangle an underwater fishing net with his arms submerged up to the shoulder. He says, ouch, and the fish do the work, pulling him out of the boat and tipping the canoe over. His son manages to crawl onto the now upside-down canoe as crimson stains the waters.
Ouch. One thing that they did manage to do very well in this movie is make you cognizant of all the contact points with the water.
Yeah.
When you see that guy reaching in, it's like, oh, God, don't do that, man. Don't do that, you know.
Right.
That's one thing in this movie that I think is done exceedingly well. But that's all I got to say.
Fair enough. Moving on. Back on the raft, Hoke spills his guts about the Piranha.
The government paid you?
Of course they pay, whether it's germ warfare, the bomb, chemical warfare. There's plenty of money. Special agencies. They pay. They pay a lot better than they do in private research.
For raising fish.
No. It's a matter of genetics. Radiation, selective breeding. They called it Operation Razor Teeth.
What was it all for?
To destroy the river systems of the North Vietnamese. Our goal was to develop a strain of this killer fish that could survive in cold water and then breed at an accelerated rate. We had everything. Blank check. And then the war ended.
You sound disappointed.
They poisoned the water. After all that work, they poisoned the water.
But some survived.
We developed a lot of mutants, and a few of them were able to resist the poison. They ate their own dead, and then began to breed. Like some wild species. Suddenly there were hundreds, maybe thousands.
Our tax dollars at work, huh?
Well, that's science in the service of the defense effort.
Sure. We're spreading strains of bacteria in the subway system.
You put them in the river where they could kill people, including civilians, and little kids swimming in the rivers.
I never killed anybody. If you want to talk about killing, you talk to your politicians, the military people. No, I'm a scientist.
Kids in the water.
What?
The dam. They let the water through every couple of days, to keep the level steady on the new lake. The resorts down there, summer camp. Oh, those kids, come on.
And back at camp, the kids are all jumping in the water in their inner tubes, kicking and splashing, and definitely not drawing attention to carnivorous fish.
It was pure research. No scrounging for grant money, no academic politics. You don't know what that means to a scientist.
You fed them. You kept them alive.
I continued the experiment. There was so much more I could do with the species. So much further I could take them. You're not holding me responsible. I think you are. You pulled the plug and you're holding me responsible? Incredible. You're blaming me.
I think if you open your mouth again, I'll stick this pole in it.
Do you think they've opened up the dam yet?
I don't know. We can only hope not.
Daddy. Help me.
They come upon the fisherman's son. Hoke sees the boy begging for his father, and a look washes over his face. He dives into the water and begins to swim toward the canoe. Underwater, we see the dinner bell is sounded and the guppies are on the run. Hoke swims to the canoe, and as soon as he gets there, the fish begin to ravage his body. He screams in horror. Paul and Maggie catch up with the raft. Hoke acts as a bridge so they can pull the boy to the raft safely. They then pull Hoke out of the water, and he is riddled with wounds. Paul asks how they can stop the fish, but before he can answer, Hoke turns his head and croaks.
Did.
Hoke croaks. And Hope floats, as we know from the Sandra Bullock movie.
Whatever. Keep going. We're doing it live.
All right, I'm going. All right. As they continue to move the raft toward the camp, Hoke's lifeless arm is bleeding off the edge of the raft. His blood soaks the rope holding the logs together. The fish begin to bite at the fish begin to bite at the bloody ropes. The raft is beginning to unravel. Paul realizes what's happening, and they roll Hoke into the water, but the damage has been done. Even with Hoke in the water, the fish continue to destroy the raft. Luckily, they maneuver the raft close enough to the shore so that they can dive off onto the bank. Once Paul hits land, he begins to sprint toward the dam to try and stop the water from being released. The guard at the dam is slowly going about his business and preparing to open the floodgates while watching television in the background. Paul arrives just in time to stop him.
Now, I will say this. I want to let you get to the end of that little sequence there, but the raft thing was pretty cool. I mean, regardless of how kind of like dopey it was to have Hoke still on the raft, because what are they going to do with this guy?
Right.
I guess maybe he did want to be buried in town. I thought that was a pretty ingenious little sequence there. Like a way to kind of get them to the land, kind of a nail biter.
There's that. Here come the troops, son. The military arrives and Paul and Maggie tell them about the aquatic conundrum. Skeptical Colonel Waxman, played by Bruce Gordon, and a scientist named Dr. Mingers, played by Barbara Steele, order a trooper to toss in a leg of cow into the water while Mingers treats them like idiots. Moments later, he pulls the leg back to shore and all that's left is a bone and some stripped flesh. Waxman orders the pumps to be turned on. The new plan is to contain the fish in one area of the stream and do a massive fish kill with poison. This plan is moving swiftly and Paul's spidey senses are tingling.
We should be able to contain them in this area. Piranha travel in schools, and we brought heavy doses of Rotanon 235.
Came pretty well prepared, didn't you?
Won't it ruin this part of the river?
Well, sometimes it's necessary to destroy in order to save.
Well, what if they realize they're being slaughtered and head back upriver?
We're talking about fish, Mr. Grogan, fish. They don't realize much of anything.
Now, wait a minute. Who are you trying to kid? You must have known all along that these things were here. You wouldn't have brought all this stuff.
Okay, Mr. Grogan, here it is. You and Miss McGowan are the only two civilians who know about this project.
What the Colonel really means is that he'd like you to join us, become one of our team, as it were.
It figures.
The Colonel and the Doctor look on with concern as Paul and Maggie walk away. As the troops spray poison into the water with hoses, Paul hips Waxman to a potential issue on the map of the river.
We are here at the dam, okay? Now look over here and you'll see that there's a stream that feeds into it. Okay, we follow the stream back for about 1/8 of a mile and you see there's a fork. Take this branch, follow it downstream, and you'll see it empties into the river on the other side of the dam. In other words, the Piranha have got a way to get around the obstacle.
Even if there's a chance that he's right, don't you think he should do something?
No. Even if a bypass exists, Piranha have neither the intelligence nor the motivation to find it.
But you know what Hope was into. He was breeding them for endurance and intelligence and...
Well, Bob was a dreamer.
Bob? Dr. Hope? You knew him?
Fish genetics is a very small field.
You were friends?
Let's say we were a great deal more than that.
You're covering up. Is it Waxman? Are you afraid of what the Army might do to you if you...
No, I'm not afraid. I'm a scientist. I'm head of my department. It's just that there are priorities, and some things are more important than a few people's lives.
It's not how Dr. Hope felt. Not at the end.
As I said, he was a dreamer.
If anything else happens, it's your responsibility.
The situation is entirely under control, Grogan.
Hold on now. What is this? Why won't you listen to me?
Would you excuse us for a moment, please? As far as you're concerned, Mr. Grogan, this project does not exist. Understand that Piranha do not exist.
And if I make a squawk?
Paul...
The interests of national security permit very extreme measures.
Oh, come on. The war's over, damn it.
There'll be other wars, Mr. Grogan.
I think for your own protection, we'd better secure your tent for the night.
Maybe Reagan was right. The worst words you can ever hear is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Later that night, with the guard pacing outside the tent, Paul and Maggie plan their escape. Paul suggests that Maggie flirt with the guard as a distraction because it's the 70s and that's all women are good for. So she comically flashes her tits at him. Paul bags him over the head and they escape. They steal a Jeep and ride off into the night. Wow, what a great scene, guys.
Incredible. Like a real team effort. Apparently, Heather Menzies didn't want to do the nude shot there at the last minute because she thought that her husband or boyfriend, I think it was her husband at the time, wouldn't like it. And so they got this waitress that was at this diner or at the Holiday Inn restaurant or something and asked her if she would do that. And she was like, yeah, sure. And so she did it and got paid for as a day player or something.
Stunt boobs.
Yeah, stunt chest. And the guard here is played by John Sayles.
Oh, okay.
That big tall goon is the one and only John Sayles. So,
writer of this amazing script.
Yeah. Yeah. This, oh God.
What's our motto? Making movies is hard. Okay.
It's very hard.
Since Paul is the smart one of the two, he just realizes 50 minutes into the movie that his daughter is at the summer camp where campers might as well be dangling from hooks. They find a payphone and he calls Dumont to warn him about the piranha. Dumont thinks he's drunk and hangs up on him. And you know, he's got a right to feel that way since the dude is a drunk. They decide to drive to the camp themselves. Naturally, as they speed away, they get pulled over by a cop. He, too, doesn't believe Paul's story. His alcoholism has gotten Paul into trouble, naturally. Plus, Paul stole a military jeep. The cop says that they are the cop says that they are to follow him back to the police station or he will shoot them.
Say that one more time.
The cop says that they are to follow him back to the police station or he will shoot them.
Okay. Okay.
I want you to drive the stolen vehicle back as I follow you.
Yeah.
Maybe have somebody to come pick it up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Apparently there are no tow trucks in town. This
must
must be a very strange town.
Yeah.
There are no tow trucks and they bury people in the square.
Back at the station, the cop calls Waxman to tell him about the apprehended Jeep thieves. Waxman goes to work.
Yes, we've got a bit of a situation up here, a very delicate situation. And you can help us control it by holding them for us.
Yes, Colonel. Yes, I understand. We'll do.
Then make sure they don't try to communicate with the outside. We're trying to avoid unnecessary panic.
Certainly. Their best interests, I agree. Well, you're welcome, Colonel. See you in the morning.
The cop walks back to the holding cell.
Well, you best make yourself comfortable, folks. You'll be spending the night.
What about a phone call? You have to give us a phone call?
Listen, I don't want to hear it. I gotta get back on that road now. So you folks, you just behave yourselves.
Now, wait a minute. You can't just leave. My daughter's down there. There are kids down there, and the piranha's still in the river. Please.
Waxman calls Buck Gardner, played by the one and only Dick Miller. He says the panic from the piranha hoax will ruin their grand opening. Waxman is a silent partner in a business venture with Buck, and secrecy is of the utmost importance. It's so secret that even we don't know what the business is yet. The moon shines on the troubled waters of the river. Betsy and Laura decide to take a late-night swim, even though Betsy feels like something is wrong in the universe. Before they can hit the drink, Dumont arrives and says that he's heard rumblings of campers taking midnight swims, and he will be ready to bust him if they do. As he ambles away, they decide to swim tomorrow night. Back in the pokey, Maggie is trying to kick the drain pipe off the sink in her cell. She then takes the ceramic cover off the toilet and smashes it on the floor, waking the guard in another room. She's hatching an escape plan that she once heard about, and Paul thinks she's losing her mind. She's a woman, so obviously she's hysterical. She takes a chunk of the lid and wraps it in her sweater, hiding it behind her back. The guard asks what the ruckus is about. She says there's something wrong with the sink. The pipe came off and she can't put it back on. The guard comes in and she knocks him out with the lid chunk. The guard's keys are attached to his pants, so Paul tells her to take the guard's pants off of him. She's taken too long for Paul's liking, and he says that he figured she could get a guy's pants off quicker than that because she's a woman, so she must be a slut. She frees Paul from his cell, and they are off to see if one of the keys can start a police cruiser.
I mean, Paul, man. Just like, wait, are you crazy? You mean this plan isn't going to involve you flashing the guard? God.
But you have to knock him out. You could have just flashed him.
Yeah. He would have just fainted.
Yeah.
I got a few things. Like, I don't want to, step on your poetry here as you're talking about.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, because it's really an amazing film. In the second act, I think one of the big story things that I like that I don't think they ever really follow up on is the idea of scientists not taking responsibility for these projects. So like Hoke, for instance, when they're on the raft, he says, I never killed anybody. I'm a scientist or whatever. And it's like, well, bullshit. No, like you sold out for grant money. That's what you do. And that's what scientists do. We see it happening today with, the response to things going on in our world. Some scientists say, well, there's a body of evidence that says such and such isn't real when it clearly is. I like that idea. I don't know that they ever really follow up on it in this movie. I mean, because pretty much the government are the bad guys kind of going forward.
Yeah.
They're also stupid. Operation Razor Tooth or Razor Teeth. That's a stupid name for a project.
Yeah.
But I guess Sayles wrote a version of this script where the government were the heroes. And the reason he did that was so they could get the National Guard to let them use the trucks and stuff. So they showed them that script, and then they made this movie. So
yeah,
I'm not saying that version of the movie would have been any better than this version, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, Dante talked about this kind of taking off on the government thing. He said that the FBI actually had to place some agents posing as drivers in their production because of a problem the production was having with local Teamsters. I guess that it was like a non-union shoot, so the Teamsters were pissed off about it, so they would disrupt shots or stick knives into the tires of the trucks and stuff. So I guess that the FBI was kind of monitoring this shoot all along. To make sure that nobody got hurt. So I thought that was
weird.
Kind of, weird, interesting.
We revisit Buck Gardner as he welcomes patrons to Buck Gardner's Aquarina Springs Resort. The big grand opening features boating, swimming, water sports, plus free barbecue, you simple bitches. This would explain the Colonel not wanting the Piranha to ruin opening day, much like the mayor of Amity Island didn't want his shark scare to ruin his tourism.
At the beginning of this movie, Maggie is playing a Jaws game, but Buck Gardner never stops to think, hey, if it might run tourism, I should, maybe I shouldn't be an asshole.
Right.
That's the thing, is that I understand that it's a cute touch to have Jaws at the beginning, but it really would have been cool if somebody had really taken meta to the next level in this movie and said, this is kind of like Jaws. Maybe we should keep these people out of the water.
Yeah.
And somebody say, no. And they kind of have that conversation.
Right.
I mean, I would want to see Dick Miller have that conversation.
That'd be funny.
He was so incredible. I feel like I'd like to just watch Dick Miller do about anything. Well, not anything.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be reasonable here, but...
Back at camp, Dumont, ruling the camp with a goddamn iron fist, announces that it's time for the water competition. Betsy and Laura line up the campers into competing teams. Paul and Maggie speed along in a cruiser, and Paul has an epiphany.
Salt water.
What?
I just remembered it was salt water.
What was?
In the pond at the test site. Thought it was strange at the time, and then I forgot about it.
So?
Well, piranha are freshwater fish. That means that Hoke must have developed a strain that can live both in fresh and salt. Like salmon. That's why they're headed downstream.
And if they get to the ocean?
There'll be no way to contain them. They'll be able to swim up every river system in the country.
The kids grab their inner tubes and jump into the water. Susie is hiding behind a tree reading a comic book when Dumont finds her and demands she get in the water. He walks to the edge of the water to line up the kids for the race. While he's distracted, Susie runs off and hides under a canoe. Cut to Paul driving like a maniac and taking out a mailbox while swerving to avoid a Camaro. Back to the camp, Dumont is waist deep in the water with the starter pistol ready to start the inner tube race. He fires and off they float. Betsy and Laura are out on tubes directing traffic. The fish arrive and begin attacking the children. Blood begins to flow as they scream and thrash. Dumont looks down into the water and the fish jumps out and bites him on the face. Panic sets in and the kids desperately try to get back to land, but some end up falling out of their tubes and into the water where the fish begin to devour them. Susie comes out from under the canoe and springs into action. She grabs an inflatable lifeboat. Dumont pulls the children out of the water one by one. Susie rows out into the water to save Betsy and Laura, who are farther out than anyone. Laura manages to board the boat, but Betsy isn't so lucky. Her tube pops and the fish drag her down into the murky depths.
That shot is incredible.
This whole scene's really well done.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really well done scene, and that shot of Belinda Belaski like sinking into the murky depths is just incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's a fantastic shot. Really something.
Paul and Maggie arrive after the damage has been done. Paul sees Susie and tells Maggie to call the resort and warn them. Buck's assistant, Whitney, played by Sean Nelson, brings Buck a phone and a briefcase. A briefcase! Maggie tells him the situation, and he hangs up on her thinking it's a prank.
He brings him a phone and a briefcase that cannot do a 65th of the shit that our smartphones can do.
Right.
This phone, you literally can pick it up and dial, and that's it.
Yeah.
You talk to someone, and
That's
that's all. You can't even use it as a calculator. You know?
Do they even have briefcase phones in the 70s? Or is this just something fun?
I have no idea. I mean, you could see car phones in movies like Live and Let Die, I think.
Conversation had one.
Yeah, The Conversation. So I think that they were. I don't know about the briefcase phone, but
yeah,
I guess I wouldn't see why not. Because if you think about it, like they had field communicators and stuff that the military would use. So it's probably similar technology, I would think.
The water is murky with blood and busted inner tubes. Paul and Maggie want to drive to the resort to try and stop the madness. Paul leaves Susie in Laura's capable hands. The resort is just lousy with patrons with terrible hair, short shorts, porn stashes, mesh jerseys, and ill-fitting string bikinis. Colonel Waxman, still decked out in his uniform and medals, arrives with Mingers. He tells Buck that Paul and Maggie broke out of the clink. Mingers tells Buck to call the newspaper and tell them that there may be prank calls coming in. Buck and Whitney take off while Waxman and Mingers board a pontoon with other patrons. A speedboat whips through the water, pulling a water skier behind them. On another boat, 3 scuba divers drop down into the murky depths of the lake. One diver gets his flipper caught in a plant and stops to fix it. He is then attacked by the ravenous carnivores. The skier sees the body of the scuba diver floating in the water. He tries to get the driver of the boat to slow down, but she just goes faster. He finally gets her to slow down, but they round a corner and his rope collides with another speedboat. He wipes out and the other speedboat crashes into and jumps over a fishing boat, causing the boat to explode.
Of course.
Yeah. Gotta be an explosion.
There has to be one.
Back toward the beach, patrons are starting to become snacks. Buck is on the phone with the newspaper. Whitney breaks the news.
There's not a word of truth to it. Believe me, we already talked to the other newspapers about it. Sir. Excuse me, I'm on a phone. I told you not even to say that word.
But the piranhas.
What about the goddamn piranhas?
They're eating the guests, sir.
Bob, I'm going to have to get back to you on this. We've got a situation down here.
A fake-looking corpse bobs up and down in the water, and the swimmers are having a 4-alarm shit fit. And of course, it wouldn't be a Roger Corman movie if the fish didn't remove the top of a female swimmer. Check the box.
That's right. Let me mark my bingo card here. Let's see. Monster removing top. I think that works.
Take a drink. Yeah.
Yep.
The panicking swimmers begin to climb onto the pontoon that holds Waxman, Mingers, and about a dozen other people. Waxman pushes him off, fearing a capsize, but mostly because he's a swell guy.
What a dick.
Maggie and Paul arrive to the sounds of mayhem and screaming. The fish continue to tear the flesh off the swimmers. Waxman is pulled off the boat and is turned into a hungry man dinner. Maggie and Paul commandeer a speedboat, driving away as bloodied people are pulled from the water. Paul has a plan.
Where are we going?
The Lake Narrows where the outlet for the refinery was. It'll be bunched tight when they come through there.
What then?
If it isn't capped off, there might be enough waste left in the smelting tanks.
It'll kill the fish?
It'll kill anything. We'll pollute the bastards to death.
When they arrive, they discover the station is flooded and the control booth is underwater. He grabs a tow line from the back of the boat. He ties the rope around his torso and tells Maggie to count to 100. He says if he's not back by then, to gun the boat and get out of there because he's likely dead. He swims along the floor and finds a control booth, breaking a window and swimming inside. He finds the drainage valve and struggles to turn. From out of nowhere, he is attacked by the piranha. He turns the valve as they shred his face and body. He has succeeded, but at a hell of a cost. Maggie hits 100 and guns the boat. She pulls him out of the control booth at breakneck speed. When the boat finally stops, the rope is broken. Maggie looks toward the water in sadness, but Paul's skinned hand emerges through the water like Carrie White from the grave. Back at Buck's, the medics have arrived and it's nothing but carnage. Bodies are strewn all over, some dead, some alive, most looking like pulled pork. News reporters swarm the beach and Buck ain't happy about that. Somehow Susie has arrived at the beach and is crying looking for her father. She finds him and he's looking like a lumberjack tried to cut him down. We end with Mengers giving an interview to a radio reporter.
And where we go from here, Dr. Mengers?
Well, I'm personally going to head a full-scale investigation into this incident, both to discover who is responsible and to make absolutely certain that nothing like this could possibly happen again.
As an expert in tropical species, what danger is there in the possibility of the piranha reaching the ocean?
Oh, none at all. Most of them will have been destroyed by pollution at the end of the lake. Of course, if any of them did get through, there's no way they could survive the salt water.
She looks straight down the barrel with a cocky smile and says,
There's nothing left to fear.
Woof.
Corman wanted multiple climaxes in this movie. So that's why you get both the camp and the amusement park. Like, that's why you get both of those sequences. To me, the multiple climaxes just made this feel so long, and it felt like it was just a sequence of things happening. It didn't feel like it was a story or anything. It was just kind of like, okay, all this shit happens, and we see an explosion, we see blood, we see breasts, and then we're out.
Yep.
You know? And, I mean, I guess it's okay for a Corman film, but every time I get through with this movie, I don't really feel like I've seen a movie.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the worst feeling you can possibly have after you've seen a movie.
Mm-hmm.
That nothing makes an imprint on me from this movie, really.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to fathom why it's considered such a cult classic.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's really, it's not memorable.
No, I mean, like, usually with these movies, we kind of have some goofy fun. I mean, we've joked a little bit here.
Yeah.
But we're halfway through watching this movie for the show, and I'm thinking, oh, this was a mistake.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, there are times we just feel that way. You just kind of have to say it. And anybody who's listening out there who really loves this movie, I'm really sorry. You know, God bless you if you love it. That's cool. I mean, we all love different stuff, you know, so
yeah.
that's fine. I just don't. I just do not dig this movie at all.
It starts out with a bit of a sense of humor, you know. It's got the Jaws tag, it's got Keenan Wynn and the dog, and then it's got the weird rancor monster.
Right.
And then it just progressively loses its sense of humor, and pretty quickly after that.
Yeah. You know, the thing about it is that both of those tones would work.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if the movie consistently had a sense of humor all the way through, that would work.
Yeah.
If the movie was consistently serious all the way through, that would work.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't happen to work together.
Right.
I don't think. And I think it's kind of like what we talked about with the part of Sparkplug in The Town That Dread Sundown.
Yeah.
That clash of tones doesn't work.
Right.
It can work, but it takes some finessing and some massaging to really make a cohesive film.
Yeah.
It just does. And it just doesn't happen in this movie.
Right.
Apparently, Universal tried to sue to stop the release of this movie. And then Spielberg saw it and thought, oh, no, I like it, so just lay off. And so they laid off. I think Spielberg saw it and was like, that's no competition for Jaws.
Right.
So
right.
I'm going to say this, and we might lose, I don't know, maybe 3 of our 12 listeners.
Uh-oh.
I don't like Jaws. I don't like Jaws. I don't get it. I like Roy Scheider.
Mm-hmm.
I like Richard Dreyfuss. I like Robert Shaw. I think that they give good performances in it.
Yeah.
I just don't really like it as a movie. It just doesn't appeal to me.
Huh.
I can say, though, confidently that I liked Piranha even less than I did Jaws.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate Jaws.
Yeah.
I think Jaws is a well-made movie. And it's just not one of those movies I'm a huge fan of.
Gotcha.
But I think it's one of those things, too, is you have to see Jaws at a certain... It's one of those movies I feel like you have to see at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to connect with you at a certain time. I didn't see Jaws until I was in my 20s, probably. I don't think it really probably connected with me in the same way that it would have connected with me if I had seen it when I was a kid.
I'm embarrassed to say I didn't see it till maybe about 5 years ago, and I loved it from the first viewing, so I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not one of those things. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe you're just a picky bitch.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have saw it without my meds or something. I don't know. Yeah, we're not talking about Jaws. We're talking about Piranha and, whatever. Honestly.
Yeah.
I like Joe Dante, too. That's the thing is I like Joe Dante. I like his work. I like John Sayles' work. I like a lot of Roger Corman films.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them have a justified reputation because there's a kernel of something in there that's really fascinating and really compelling. And there are some things in there that get brought out in interesting ways in a lot of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel like this is one of them. The thing about the underwater shots, okay, so like all the underwater stuff that they did with the Piranha and everything, they actually shot at the Olympic swimming facility at USC. Of course, they had to use, like, those Piranha were actually like little puppets on sticks that they would squeeze a trigger or pull a stick back and forth or whatever, make them look like they were biting. But because they had to use all this Karo syrup and artificial plants and all this stuff, and milk, no less, to kind of cloud the water up to make it look like the river water, all of that stuff created this weird fungus or life form that grew in the facility. And it took a long time for them to get rid of it. Dante claims that it was a previously unrecognized life form, and they had to basically sandblast and dismantle the pool to get rid of it.
Good
and they
Lord.
flew in scientists from San Francisco to help them try to get rid of this stuff. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
Was this movie worth that?
No.
I rest my case.
Did Corman foot the bill for that?
I don't know. He doesn't say. I doubt it.
Yeah.
I imagine that, like, they probably ended up just footing the bill like the university or the, I don't know how the Olympics thing works. So
yeah.
I don't know if he even said who foot the bill for it. He was just kind of laughing about it. Just kind of like, obviously you didn't do your commentary in 2020, bud.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that we don't really, we're frowning upon that this year.
That's right. That's right.
The 7 seals are opening, sir. Please do not create new life forms that have to be sandblasted, Has this been remade?
Yes, it was remade, and it was... The remake, in my opinion, is much better, but still not totally memorable. The remake is incredibly gory.
Oh, really?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was done by, what's the guy's name? Alexander Aja or something like that. He's the one that did the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which I thought was very good.
Oh, yeah.
And he recently did Crawl, the alligator movie. And he does some very gory movies.
Huh.
He's a wizard of gore.
Yeah.
Not to steal somebody's title, but the guy knows his way around gore.
So then we don't have to really talk about Remake or Rembrandt, right?
No, it was remade and it was done better.
Done. Check another box. Where's my bingo card?
We're going to take an intermission. We'll be right back with Barracuda.
Barracuda.
And
now, intermission. Refreshment time.
2 minutes until showtime.
Hello, country music fans. This is good old Critter McGinnis. We haven't crossed paths in a while because me and the Sour Pickle Boys have been out on the road. Picking up trash for the county. But we're fixing to put on another show for you good people this
July 27th.
Since there is a great sickness among the American people, not socialism, but the other thing, we will be performing live via webcam and broadcast on the big screen at the all-night drive-in picture show. And if my lady friend don't need this battery put back in her Corvair, we'll even break out the amplifiers. That's Critter McGinnis and the Sour Pickle Boys featuring Big Wayne, one night only, $100 a carload. No refunds and no rain checks. And did I mention we know wagon wheel? Hey, you said I get one phone call.
90 seconds until showtime.
Coming soon to this drive-in theater.
It's the night of the senior prom. The Bates High School gym is alive with excitement. Everybody is there, even Carrie White. The girl no one likes.
We're all sorry about this incident, Cassie.
It's Carrie!
And everyone makes fun of her. The girl who lives in that creepy house with her crazy mother.
Help the sinning woman see the sin of her days and ways. Show her that if she had remained sinless, the curse of blood would never have come on her.
The girl with the strange power.
If I concentrate hard enough, I can move things.
But tonight, no one will laugh at Carrie.
If you don't have a date for the prom next Friday, would you like to go with me?
She's with the best-looking boy in the senior class.
He's trying to trick me again.
She'll be voted queen of the prom.
You know, I can make sure that you don't hurt Carrie White anymore.
For Carrie, it will be a dream come true. For everyone else, it will be a nightmare. Carrie. A new film by Brian De Palma. Based on the chilling bestseller. Starring Sissy Spacek, Piper Laurie, and introducing John Travolta in his first motion picture role. If you have a taste for terror, you have a date with Carrie.
It's showtime.
And now, please enjoy our feature presentation.
An ocean polluted by a chemical plant creates hostility in a community and a school of killers underwater. This is Barracuda. The film opens with an underwater shot of a coral reef with a kick-ass score. Good God, that score is awesome.
Klaus Schultz, man. Pioneer of electronic music. He was a drummer in Tangerine Dream early on. Dude's got like 60 albums in his catalog.
Wow. The Jaws theme has nothing on this. Nothing.
Really, the score is great all the way through this movie. It's fantastic.
It really is. This opening theme, though, man, I was immediately taken by it. It's so good.
Yeah, definitely.
We come across a couple who are scuba diving. The man finds a bottle on the ocean floor, takes out a knife, and starts scraping ocean shit off of it. While tending to the bottle, we get the point of view of something stalking them. The lady turns her head to see some barracuda, and people, those fish fuck them up. Clouds of red blood kick up, a hand is severed, the man gets chopped around the neck, and a leg is stripped to the bone. This is the opening scene, and the kills are far better than anything in our previous film.
This was the first time that Wayne, who we're going to actually meet on screen here in a minute, had directed anything, and he did all the underwater shooting on this film.
Wow.
And I think my opinion of this movie is probably colored a little bit by the fact that I knew him, but at the same time, I love the underwater shots in this movie.
Yeah.
This underwater shot really probably goes on too long, objectively, but I love it. I just think it looks so beautiful.
If you can get, nice underwater shots like that, it doesn't matter how long they go on, in my opinion.
Me too. I mean, this movie, even though the print that we watched for this wasn't really the best print of the movie, it was pretty good overall.
Yeah.
But
it's fine.
The underwater shots just look gorgeous.
Yeah. Then we see two men driving in a brown car. In town, the man played by Matt King checks out of a hotel. The clerk, played by Robert Gene Noe, says that he hopes the man's company brings its development project to their town. The man says nothing. He loads his bags into a blue car and tells the driver that they are on schedule. The driver looks like James Carville with a mess of hair.
With a mess of hair!
The blue car drives to the city limits and approaches the brown car. The drivers nod at each other, and the brown car enters the town as the blue car leaves town. A sign reads, "Welcome to Palm Cove, Lobster Capital, population 4,000. Not for long."
That's a weird exchange between these four guys. It's just a very strange exchange. And, I love it. I think that's the thing about this movie that I love is that I don't think that tone is necessarily intentional throughout the movie, but it's always there. And I know I go back to this guy a lot, but it feels very Lynchian. The fact that the guy comes out and tells the driver, "We are on schedule," and then goes around and gets in the car, it's like, could you just tell him that when you get in the car so you're even more on schedule?
Yeah.
But I really like that, and I like that there are a lot of points in this movie where the camera kind of follows a character when they don't really have to follow them. And this is adjacent to that. And I love that so much. I just, it's just exceedingly odd.
Well, unlike our previous movie, this movie has got a lot of depth to it. So, and that's something we're going to tackle here in a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. It does.
A man from the brown car, played by Harry Kerwin, enters the same hotel. He hands the clerk a card, and the clerk says that another developer just left. They must have big plans for this town. The man says, mm-hmm. Down at the beach, a young couple runs up to a man putting on scuba gear. The man is Mike Canfield, played by Wayne Crawford. They tell him that they see no pipes anywhere. Mike tells them that they must be dumping offshore. So, Chuck, who is this Wayne Crawford I speak of?
So we talked about Wayne Crawford in the Night of the Comet episode.
We did.
He's probably most famous for being one of the writers and producers of Valley Girl. That's probably one of his biggest cultural touchstones.
Mm-hmm.
He produced Night of the Comet, which is one of my favorite movies ever. Mm-hmm. And he wrote, produced, and starred in Jake Speed, which is probably his cult hit. And he was a hell of a good guy. I did not know him very well. And at the time, it didn't click with me when I met him that he was involved with all these movies. It just did not click with me. He was one of those guys that the first time I saw him, I thought, I know this guy from somewhere, but I didn't know exactly where, because he never really talked about it that much,
Mm-hmm.
He was a very direct guy, and I think he's probably the best performance in this movie overall, but you can tell that he had a hand in writing it, because he speaks it like he's heard these lines in his head, which is what I really love about this. I don't know if I told this story when we talked about him last time. I don't think I did. We were in graduate school together. He was much older than I am, and he was basically in a situation where he had done all this work, but he needed to get the diploma to be able to teach. And so he was in this program that I was in, this MFA program. we leave this lecture one day, and they had this guest lecturer. And so we walked out, and we're walking across the parking lot, going to the next lecture or whatever. And somebody asked Wade what he thought of the lecture. And he said, well, it was better than getting fucked in the eye. When I think of Wayne Crawford, I think of that. You know,
Yeah.
He was a good dude. I mean, I like I say, I did not know him very well. I was only around him probably a couple of times because we had residencies where we were there for about 10 days, and then we would study remotely for a semester and then go back.
Yeah.
So I think I was only around him maybe 1 or 2 residencies, but he was a really good guy, and it's cool to see this movie again because I'd seen this movie forever ago, but it means something different to me now, both knowing more of what I know about movies now, having studied them for 30 years after seeing this as a kid, and also getting to know him just a little bit. But he's just a good guy. So
yeah,
wherever he is, I hope it's better than getting fucked in the eye.
Me too.
I like what I like. No,
In an office building off the beach, Papa Jack, played by Bert Freed, is talking about security with an employee. His son Bubba, played by Jerry Rhodes, gets a little worked up by what he sees outside the window.
Production's constant. Everything's on schedule. Security is tight.
Papa, look at this.
Shut up, Bubba, while your papa's talking.
Security. Papa, there's a diver and some others messing around with some gadgets out there on the beach property.
Well, that's very good, Bubba. I suppose you take Eugene, go on down there and shag their butts out of there.
Yes, Papa.
I love him so much.
I know.
I love Jerry Rhodes.
Not much of a thespian, though, is he?
Well, I think he should have won the Academy Award for this movie. You know, though, the thing about him is that, like, yeah, sure, he's not the best actor in the world, but here's an instance where this kind of weird comedic character actually fits in with the tone of this movie.
Yeah.
Because this movie is kind of like a hodgepodge of all these things. It doesn't completely work, but I think Bubba fits. You know, he's exactly the kind of son that Papa Jack would have. I think their chemistry with each other is outstanding. You know?
Yeah.
And again, like, this is when Bubba goes out to investigate this disturbance outside the window. The camera follows him for some strange reason out the door. He goes across this big room, and the camera just follows him for no apparent reason. And he goes out the door. I love that. I love that drifting camera.
Yeah.
And I think Jerry Rhodes is hysterical. I think this is only one of like 2 movies he was ever in. And that's just too bad.
Yeah.
Because he's hysterical.
Mike swims along the ocean floor. He finds a drainage pipe and takes water samples in small containers. Back up on the beach, Bubba and a guard named Eugene approach Mike's 4 partners. Eugene has a shotgun. Bubba tells the 4 that they need to come with him. Bubba reports back to Papa that the 4 are college students taking water samples for pollution. Papa says to have them arrested for trespassing and for Bubba and Eugene to get the diver and relieve him of his samples. Mike gathers up his samples and puts them in a mesh bag. While he's doing it, he hits his leg on some coral, causing it to bleed. Barracuda can be seen in the background. Mike looks up and sees a boat on the surface. It's Bubba and Eugene. Bubba with the shotgun tells him to get into the boat. Mike climbs in and takes off his flipper. He sneaks a container into the flipper. Bubba tosses the bag into the water and shoots it with his shotgun. The 4 students are all sitting inside the gates of the Jack Chemical Company, being watched by armed guards. Papa waits for the boat to dock and then grills Mike for answers.
What the hell you got against me, boy?
I don't know. Who the hell are you?
Oh, he's a wise ass, Papa. Shut up. Why are you sneaking around my plant? I mean, who gives you the right?
Same right that lets you garbage up this ocean, I guess.
Before you do anything crazy, you gotta understand something. This plant of mine, it's just about the only source of employment of this whole town.
I could give a damn about your plant. And you're not gonna have to worry about your town if you keep it up. No, I'm a little bit concerned with the Earth, pal. I mean, can you think that big?
Papa, Bubba, and Eugene lead Mike toward the students. One of the female students is being accosted by a guard. Her boyfriend pushes the guard and the guard punches him. Mike runs up to the guard and punches him in the gut. The cops arrive. Mike tells one student to get his scuba gear and tells him about the sample in the fin. Mike is taken away by the fuzz. Back at the sheriff's office, Sheriff Ben Williams, played by William Kerwin, wakes Deputy Lester, played by Cliff Emmich, sleeping on the job like some ne'er-do-well. Williams tells Mike, who's locked up in the holding cell, that the judge is supposed to be back in town by 3 o'clock for his hearing. Mike then asks for something to eat, and Williams says his daughter Liza, played by Roberta Layton, is on her way with some food that she made. Mike says sarcastically that she probably has a great personality and makes her own clothes, too.
What the fuck?
Not exactly. Williams leaves the cell door wide open. Kerwin has got a face for Westerns, does he not?
He does, but, he did some Westerns.
I believe it.
He was on, like, Winchester 73, and I think maybe a couple of other Western shows from back in the day. But he's probably best known for his parts in Herschel Gordon Lewis movies, like Blood Feast and 2000 Maniacs.
Yeah.
He was also in the Charles B. Pierce movie, The Evictors, which is the bonus DVD with the Blu-ray for The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which we, of course, talked about last week. I don't know why I keep plugging last week's show, I guess.
Don't miss last week's episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we have 12 people listening now, chances are at least 10 of them have probably listened to that episode.
Please tell somebody.
Yeah.
Just tell somebody about the show.
Just grab
For God's sake.
Well, don't grab a stranger on the street. No, that'll get you killed.
Yeah.
Why don't you just maybe stand outside of your house with a sign?
Yeah. And at the bottom of it in big letters just put, "It's free."
It's free.
Meanwhile, Lester wants to know what oral means before being sent to the store for a jug of water and some smokes. Oral spelled A-U-R-A-L, by the way.
Oral, yeah. It's your ear.
Oral.
It has to do with your ear.
Yeah. Liza arrives with a breakfast tray and introduces herself to Mike.
I mean, their banter's okay. It's a little writerly. She asks his name, and he's like, John Dillinger, or something like that. And then, what do you do when you're not in jail? I rob banks, and I do this, and I do that. And the son of a bitch does my least favorite joke in all of comedy. He says all that shit, then she says, really? And he says, no. That, to me, is like one of the worst comedic structures. I hate that. Yeah, man, I just saw a Bigfoot. Really? No. That's not funny. Number one, it fucks it up if somebody really does see a Bigfoot. And number two, it's just not funny. It's just like you're trying to make somebody look like an idiot. I just don't like it, Ryan.
He doesn't like it.
So stop doing it to me. That's
No. Williams asks Mike if he needs anything else, and he asks if Williams has anything for his leg wound. Lester begins to cross the street with the water bottle on his shoulder. A kid in a red convertible, played by Scott Warman, slams on his brakes and scares the shit out of Lester. He parks and Lester gives him the business. The kid says his foot slipped. Lester begins to rummage through the kid's back seat and finds scuba gear. Lester recommends that he doesn't fool with anyone's underwater lobster traps. Mike and Liza take a stroll down the street because the sheriff trusts a prisoner with his daughter.
Why not?
Liza says Williams is a good man and likes Mike's spirit. Besides, he likes to give Papa Jack a hard time. A lady is trying to parallel park and she backs into another man's car. He begins to chew her out and calls her a simple moron. Mike jokes that she lives in a nice little town. I love anything that has simple in front of it. That's just the best.
It makes it all better.
It's so great. She says that guy is normally really nice and blames the heat. Then we see an agent get out of his vehicle and he begins to follow them. They walk to a doctor's office to have the leg wound treated. The receptionist is Maggie Snow, played by Bobby Ellen Costrin, who's also known as Barbara Keegan.
How do you know this?
IMDb, son. She's billed as Bobby Ellen Costrin in this movie, but it says But in IMDb, it's Barbara Keegan is her real name.
I thought you were stalking her or something.
No. She's a lovely lady, but
you're like, it's interesting. She's billed as Bobby Ellen Coster in this, but the restraining order says Barbara Keegan.
I like when she wears to bed.
Oh, wow.
She's not only the doctor's daughter, but also Liza's best friend. Liza introduces Mike and says the doctor will be with him soon. Dr. Elliot Snow, played by Jason Evers, enters. Another patient is leaving, and the patient talks about how edgy he has been and how he's been fighting with everyone. Snow then takes Mike back to be treated. Maggie and Liza talk about how cute Mike is. Snow asks Mike about his leg wound. He says he snagged it on some coral taking polluted water samples.
I gotta say, man, Jason Evers is a very specific 70s type of guy.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
The voice, like this is a guy who probably smokes a pack or two a day, and he's got really kind of piercing blue eyes. I think they're blue. It's kind of like William Kerwin. You say he has a face for Westerns. And William Kerwin most definitely looks like the late 50s, early 60s. That's what his type is, right? And Jason Evers, he just looks like the 70s.
He does, yeah. He's got kind of a Steve McQueen look about him.
Yeah.
But maybe more of a button-down Steve McQueen.
Yeah. If Steve McQueen were a little softer.
Yeah. Back at the sheriff's office, Williams wonders why Papa Jack's security guards are so pushy. Lester said he heard Jack was concerned about some of his trade secrets getting out. Williams tells Lester about the phone call regarding the missing fisherman. The kid in the convertible is diving and checking lobster traps. As he swims from trap to trap, he is attacked by two barracuda. They shred the poor bastard and the water runs red. On the beach, a young girl and her dog are playing fetch. She tosses a stick out into the ocean and the dog goes to retrieve it. She tosses the stick out too far and the dog doesn't want to go that far out.
Because he's not an idiot.
That's right.
Like that dog in Jaws is a fucking idiot. Sorry.
She goes to get the stick and comes back to the beach. The dog picks up something that washes up on the beach. It's a diver's head, still wrapped in the wetsuit hood and wearing the mask. She screams in terror.
Of course she does. That's horrifying.
Why wouldn't she scream in terror? It's a severed head.
That's absolutely horrifying. It reminds me of those. Do you hear those stories like a few years ago where there was this one beach? I can't remember what it was.
It's in Canada, the one where the feet were washing up on shore.
Yeah, right.
Still in their shoes.
Yeah, that's so weird, man.
It is. And like multiple feet.
I mean, I can't even imagine finding a foot in a shoe on a beach, much less a head in a scuba hood. Like, forget it.
Right.
Just forget it.
Yeah. The cops are on the scene. Williams pulls up in a woody wagon.
Yeah.
Lester recognizes the head of the boy in the convertible. He reckons that the kid drowned and became bait. A reporter named Floyd, played by Bob J. Shields, arrives with a photographer, Toby, played by Scott Avery, to get the scoop, but Williams no-sells him, saying it's just a drowning. Back at the courthouse, Floyd has followed the sheriff, continuing to investigate. Mike is there and Floyd wants to know about the water sampling. Mike says that the plant dumping chemicals is no secret and that it's one of 500 that are doing the same thing. It could prove fatal not just to their town but everywhere. Lester shows up and tells Williams that they have trouble. Papa Jack shoots some pool and wants some answers from an agent. So we keep calling these guys agents because they're suited up and they wear sunglasses and they just look like agents of some sort.
Yeah, I mean they're from these developers and they kind of just are prowling around all the time, not saying a whole lot. So agent's the only word I can really think of. I mean,
we don't find out exactly who they're working for till later on, but in the meantime, we're just going to call them agents.
Yeah.
And really, neither one of these agents has a name, so I try to be as specific as possible, but it gets kind of difficult.
That's confusing as hell.
Yeah. I think they're billed as Agent 1 and Agent 2.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't...
Well, and Agent 1 is Harry Kerwin, who is the director of this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't find this out for sure, but I think he and William Kerwin are related because they look a lot alike.
Yeah,
you know,
they do.
But
look like they could be brothers maybe there because Harry looks a little older than William does.
But I think he was only like 48 when this movie was made. He was
a hard 48.
He was dead like the year after this movie came out.
Oh, no kidding.
He died at like 49, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, but yeah, I mean, they look enough alike that I'm like, okay, well, maybe that Agent 1 is Kerwin and Agent 2 is Rick Rhodes or something. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah. So Papa Jack's shooting pool. He wants some answers from the agent. Jack has product that he needs moved, and the agent says he'll get his shipping instructions soon. However, they are concerned with the way Jack's people handled the environmentalists, and Jack gets all pissy. The phone rings, and it's for the agent. He is informed that Mike has left town. Bubba comes running in like a dumbass, saying that about 1,000 dead fish have washed up on the beach, and some of them are half-eaten. Floyd, Toby, and Williams arrive, and Floyd wants to know if the fish and the dead diver are related. Williams says yes, they were both in the same ocean.
Wow, wow.
Floyd wants to know if the plant will be closed down. Williams tells him to ask Papa Jack, who is close by. Floyd asks for a statement, and Jack says that the professionals have told him it's just a phenomenon and it will pass. Williams looks concerned. Williams and Lester meet up at a diner. A server accidentally knocks a glass of water into a patron's lap, and he gives her 9 kinds of hell before leaving. Williams and Lester both order a nice piece of fish, which doesn't look the least bit appetizing.
A nice piece of fish, you know? And it shows up and it's dried up and it's staring at him. Oh,
God.
So gross.
It looks so like oozy looking too, you know? Like it's all shiny and like goopy looking.
Oh, it's so gross, man.
Williams is distraught over the day's events and the fact that there are still 2 missing fishermen. He decides not to eat, and Lester helps himself to Williams's beans.
I've been thinking about them beans.
I've been thinking about them beans. The cook goes off on a poor server for her messy penmanship and calls her a stupid broad. Yeah, tempers are flaring in this small town.
Man, I guess so.
That poor server, man. She's taking it from all sides. Oof.
Yeah, man.
As Williams leaves the diner, one of the agents is in the diner and watches him leave. Williams ends up back at the beach and is looking at the fish kill. He leaves, and the agent, who is hiding in the weeds, goes back down to the water and bags up a few fish and takes them with him.
I like that shot. I thought that was kind of cool, the agent down there, because it was kind of dark. It was post-dusk. It really kind of reminded me of some of the cinematography from Shockwaves. I don't know if you've ever seen that, the Nazi zombies that are under the ocean. And they come up. Some of the underwater sequences in this kind of remind me of that, too. That kind of like post-dusk, you know, look near the sea.
It looked like natural lighting for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I really like that. And I like, you know, I got to say, I didn't say this before, but I like Harry Kerwin as this creepy agent number 1 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he fits that bill really well. He's kind of like one of those guys that's noticeable, but you could be forgiven for ignoring him and not catching on to the fact that he's following you everywhere.
He's noticeable, but he blends into the background very easily, it seems like.
Absolutely. That's right, yeah.
The next day, a young couple frolic in the ocean water, splashing each other and whatnot. The male of the couple dives underwater and is violently chewed up by carnivorous fish. His lady friend screams in horror.
One thing about this movie that I kind of like is that there's no mass hysteria. I don't recall anybody saying in the movie, we need to tell everybody to stay out of the water.
Yeah.
It kind of unravels in this way that seems almost lax. Like it almost seems like a lackadaisical response.
Yeah.
But it's also probably a little bit more realistic in some ways because it's not like something in Jaws where there's one guy go, we got to get everybody out of the water. You know, it's not that kind of thing. Or like we saw with Piranha here earlier. In a weird way, that makes the movie feel odd and off-kilter, but I also kind of like it because it's just different. You know, it's just like a different kind of response to it.
Yeah.
So like these kind of scenes with this couple going down there, well, they might know that the fish all died, they were all eaten up, but they may not know about the scuba diver.
Right.
I mean, even now today, with the internet and everything, are there times when you hear something and somebody says, oh, yeah, such and such, this story was on the news. You're just like, what? Really?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, back then it would have been even doubly because they didn't have the internet. So, it wasn't like things would travel around the world or even in a small town at light speed.
Yeah.
So
Right. At the Williams residence, Liza is waiting impatiently by the phone, hoping Mike will call her.
And telling the Ron Jarvis drive-in story. He said he would marry her. She takes all of her clothes off at the drive-in. When they were at the drive-in. And then she said she's too young to get married. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm too young to get married anyway.
And her dad's like, that's correct.
Yeah.
The phone rings and she runs to answer. It's Mike, and he asks her out. She accepts, but she doesn't look too happy. He asks to speak to Williams and wants to know what chemicals they manufacture at Papa Jack's plant. Pesticides, fertilizers, and the like, he says. Mike says the samples came back with traces of chemicals he couldn't identify. An operator cuts in saying that she has an emergency phone call. Williams tries to take his number, but Mike says Liza has it. Williams gets the dad face. The call comes through, and it's Lester informing him of the swimmer death. Williams calls Mike back and suits up.
I can't wait to see what your dad face is going to look like here in a couple of years.
I'm not looking forward to that one bit. Not in the least. For either one of them, really.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Mike arrives in a dune buggy. Floyd and Toby are casing Williams' house. Williams shows Mike photographs of what is left of the lobster thief and the swimmer. Floyd and Liza talk a skeptical Mike into investigating for a link between the crazed fish and the chemical plant. Mike doesn't think there's a link because it takes time for fish to react to pollution like that, and there's no evidence that enough time has passed for the polluted water to create enraged flesh-eating fish. Later, Mike is sleeping and Liza surprises him in bed. He's afraid of her father and his loaded pistol. He gives her a passionate kiss and then gives her a definitive good night. No time for love, Dr. Jones.
I love her line when he says, "Are you crazy?" And she's like, "I'm liberated." Like, you're damn right you are. She's good, man. She
is good.
I wish she were in it a bit more.
Yeah, I do too. After dark, Mike, Liza, and the sheriff charter a boat. There is a long sequence where Liza helps Mike put on his scuba gear.
Yeah.
Way too long.
It's way too long.
I mean, we see it from beginning to end.
Yeah. And it makes you think, why the hell would anybody go scuba diving?
Yeah, no. It's a lot of work. After dark, Mike, Liza, and the sheriff charter a boat. There is a long sequence where Liza helps Mike put on his scuba gear.
Yeah.
Oof.
Really long.
From beginning to end, we see this sequence.
I will never go scuba diving.
That's a lot of work.
Well, and I can't swim. So if you're going to put like a heavy tank on my back and I can't swim, I mean, it does have oxygen. So I guess,
Might as well tie bricks to your feet or something.
Yeah.
Mike dives in to collect more water samples with a flashlight. The boat's radar picks up a large school of fish coming Mike's way. Mike sees the razor-toothed bastards and quickly swims to the surface and yells for them to get him out of the water. Williams pulls him into the boat. He panicked and didn't get the samples. He tells Williams to cast some bait out and catch a couple of the fish for testing. At Dr. Snow's office, Mike has the severed heads of 2 of the barracudas. He takes a sample of the fish and begins to look under a microscope.
Why would you connect any of this with the chemical plant? I mean, don't fish ever die off from natural causes?
Yeah, sure they do. Red tide disease, a few others.
And certainly barracuda have the potential to be dangerous.
The potential, yes.
And fishermen are sometimes lost at sea.
Yeah?
Well, don't you think it's a little too much to suggest that the chemical plant is the root of all natural disaster? I mean, you could be wasting your time.
Well, I've done that before. It's just that there are chemicals other than the normal PCBs that need to be identified.
Well, I wouldn't worry about them. As I was taught in medical school, when you hear hoofbeats, you start looking for horses, not zebras.
I like how Mike comments on how nice Dr. Snow's lab is. Because it's a nice setup that's definitely more subtle than Snow's dialogue throughout the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
In kind of setting him up as a potential villain of some sort. I do like his explanation for the lab, though, saying that the hospital's kind of far away, so sometimes I do my own lab work. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's just the stuff beyond that where he tries to talk Mike out of investigating this, or that tries to talk him out of trying to establish a link between the plant, the chemicals, and the fish and everything. That's a little on the nose, but...
Right. Papa Jack looks at the day's newspaper nervously. The headline reads, "Chemical Plant Creates Killers in the Deep." He gets a phone call from a mystery caller. We get the impression that Jack answers to the man on the other end of the line. He is not happy with the headline, and Jack says that it's just a coincidence and nothing to worry about. The man says he had better get it under control or there will be drastic action. The dude on the phone sounded like Gus Fring.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah.
Very to the point and very distinctive way of talking.
Yeah.
The man calls the agent that's been following our heroes. He expresses his concern about the project and says that they should be prepared to make a move. The chemicals that Mike has found in the fish aren't chemicals you'd find in an industrial plant, and he's stumped. He tells Snow that he's going to take a siesta. He leaves the setup at the lab as is. Snow looks at the CUDA heads and decides to do some of his own testing. He puts the heads in the freezer and pulls out some other fish they had frozen from the fish kill. Back at the police station, Floyd and Toby wake up Lester wanting to ask William some questions, but he's not there. Floyd sends Toby back to the office. Lester realizes that he overslept and yells for Mike, who's napping in the holding cell, to wake up. Floyd seizes the opportunity to pick Mike's brain.
Well, has Sheriff got you locked up again?
Hell no, Floyd. I just thought this was a swell place to spend a vacation.
Are you back here to close down the plant?
No.
Are you saying that the plant is not polluting the water?
No, I'm not saying that because it is.
Uh-huh. Have you linked the plant with the killer fish?
No, I have not. I am back here to help Sheriff Williams investigate the fish attacks. I really have nothing more to say.
Floyd walks briskly back to his office. He's being followed by someone in a brown suit. Mike returns to Dr. Snow's office and sees the testing that Snow has been doing on the fish. He looks at the samples and compares them to the Barracuda samples, and he finds that they both have the same results. He wonders why Snow is denying everything.
And all of that is done in a dark lab.
Yeah. Yeah.
How he sees all that shit in a dark lab, I will never know.
He's good at his job.
I guess so. I mean, the microscope doesn't even appear to have a light on it. The other thing was when Floyd was walking back to the newspaper, I love that. I just thought that was such a nice little moment. Again, following somebody that it might be important that we follow them. It might not be, but we follow them anyway. I love that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool.
It's a great looking little town for a movie like this, too.
It really is. With the arches and the awnings and everything, it's just really, really something. And as we're going to see here in a little bit, there's a shot at Williams' house with Mike, Sheriff Williams, and Liza all there talking. And the depth in that shot is incredible. Like, I'll point it out when we get there. But yeah, going back to the lab, I don't know how or why Mike does stuff in the dark, but that he's not the only person who uses a dark lab, as we'll get to here in a second, I guess.
Yeah. Mike walks by an exam room and hears Snow working with a patient. He sneaks into Snow's office to check out his book collection.
Low blood sugar and violence. Elliot Snow. Physiology of stress response. Elliot Snow. Dietary logic for stress. Elliot Snow.
The man in the brown suit is that pesky agent. He has entered the newspaper building and appears to be up to no good. Floyd tells Toby to write up an article about Mike being back in town to help Williams with an investigation. Toby needs to leave because he has a date for the movies with Maggie Snow, but Floyd gives him shit about how they're about to blow the lid off the biggest story the town has ever seen. As they argue, the agent attaches a silencer to his pistol, enters the room, and shoots and kills them both.
Savage.
Yeah, no shit. Maggie arrives at the paper to pick up Toby and finds him dead. She weeps over his body. The agent tries to sneak out and Maggie catches him, saying, "I know you. You're a friend of my..." Pew! And the agent shoots and kills her. Oh shit, son.
Brutal.
Mike reads aloud one of Snow's books called War and Diet. It says that people that live in hostile environments tend to suffer from hypoglycemia, a symptom of low blood sugar. He goes digging through Snow's desk and finds a journal titled The Lucifer Project. In the journal, it details how Snow is dosing his patients with a chemical to test his low blood sugar theories. The same chemical is found in the fish. Snow walks his patient out, a man who got angry and struck his wife, something he had never done before. Snow blames it on stress and sends a prescription home with him.
I love how he says, just relax.
Yeah.
You just hit your wife, but she's just being hysterical. Just relax.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
just relax.
Okay.
Take 2 of these, call me in the morning.
Yeah, right.
Snow returns to the lab and Mike approaches him.
I didn't hear you come in.
Yes, Doctor, I know. You were too busy conning your patient.
What's wrong?
You're cool, Doc. You've been stringing me along. You know all about those chemicals because you're involved.
Mike, you don't understand.
Look, I don't know what the hell's going on around here, but I understand one thing. People are dying in this town, and it all starts at that chemical plant.
No. Mike, you must believe me. It's for the good of everyone. No one was supposed to die.
I don't give a damn what they were supposed to do. All I know is they're dead. Mike!
Mike leaves. Snow goes to the phone.
They won't let you.
Yes?
The biologist. He's back. He knows.
Does he know everything?
No, not yet.
We'll take care of everything.
The man on the other end is that rascally agent.
Now, here yet again, we have Snow coming back into the lab when he doesn't think anybody else is there and still working in the dark. I don't understand. Do these two dudes have night vision or what? But I love the shot when he's sitting there working and they show Mike just emerge from the shadows. It's a lot like that shot in Halloween when there's darkness and all at once you see this kind of just a vague light shine, but what it is it's Michael's face. It's in that dark doorway. I love shots like that. I love coming and going. When somebody does that, we saw it in Cockfighter when Warren Oates lost that cockfight in the hotel room and he goes out and like the darkness just kind of envelops him. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I just think it's one of the brilliant shots in this movie.
Or in The Strangers too, where she's in the kitchen and you see the guy in the background, you see his face just kind of come into view and just kind of, he's wearing the bag over his head.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah.
There's a shot, have you ever seen that movie Whale Rider?
Yeah.
There's a shot in that where her grandfather, I think, walks off or runs off into the darkness. And you just kind of see his head at the bottom of the frame. There's a lot of headroom, but he goes off into the darkness. You can see him kind of like breaching the membrane there between the darkness and the light. It's just so great, man. I love stuff like that. It's just it feels so organic.
Yeah, it does.
This made Mike look like he was part of the darkness. So crazy, you know?
Yeah.
Love that.
Mike returns to the Williams residence and tells the sheriff and Liza what kind of shenanigans are going down in their little burg.
Here you go, Mike. Take it easy and just keep calm, okay?
We can't, Ben. It's not just what's in the ocean. It's the whole lousy town.
I don't understand. What are you talking about?
The doctor. The doctor is controlling the behavior of the people in this town.
Impossible.
I know he's doing it. I saw the records. Those chemicals keep the body from absorbing the nutrients in the food. It creates a condition known as hypoglycemia.
Hypo what?
Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar.
Well, that doesn't sound so dangerous.
Well, you're wrong, Ben. There must be 50 books and papers written on the subject, half of them by our good Dr. Elliot Snow.
Well, now, what does this disease do?
It's not a disease. I'm sorry. It's not a disease. It's a condition. A condition that can cause a hostile or aggressive behavior.
Yep. Mike, are you sure about this?
I'm sure about what's happening, Ben. I just don't know why.
Well, do you think Jack is in on it?
He must be. But who else? I mean, there's got to be others. There's got to be a reason, right?
Well, what does that have to do with the fish?
They're starving to death. Look, The weak ones die. The barracuda are hardier fish, so they start eating everything in sight. But they can't assimilate the nutrients in the food either. So they just keep on eating, but they're still starving to death.
Why would anyone want to do this?
I don't know. But the plan was perfect, except for one thing. I mean, Jack's lousy production because he's dumped this crap into the water just like everything else.
So if the fish hadn't gone crazy, no one would have ever known.
That's right.
But how do you get a drug into an entire town? What is it, Mike?
You know, obviously, they're onto you. We're gonna need some help here. This thing's dead.
Is it? How long have you been drinking bottled water, Ben?
What does that have to do with anything?
How long?
I don't know. Maybe 6 months, maybe. Lester, he had it at the office, and I liked it, and so I brought some home. Wait a minute. You don't think I'm one of them, do you?
How do we know? I mean, who the hell are they?
What's the matter with you two?
Well, this is no way to solve anything.
Dad, what are you doing? Dad!
Williams hands Mike a gun.
You know how to use one of these?
I guess so.
Okay. Now you take Liza to town, find Lester, have him call the state police, because we're gonna need some backup.
Dad, where are you going?
I'm going to the plant. We need some answers.
Hypoglycemia, bitch!
It's a killer! This is that wide shot I was talking about earlier here. The wide shot where they're standing there talking, you kind of see through the hallway into another room, and he has like a sliding door and stuff. That looks so cool. That house, I was like, I kind of want to live in this joint, you know? It's like,
it's a nice, big, sprawling ranch.
Yeah. But like where they're sitting in his dining room earlier in the film when Liza and Williams are talking Mike into investigating this, it looks like they're in a dining room, but it's like a cinder block library room or something. It's like got bookshelves and stuff. It's really weird, but it looks like a fun little house.
Yeah, it does. The sheriff heads toward the plant. Mike and Liza go to find Lester. Mike tells him to inform the state police and keep Liza with him. Lester tells Mike that Floyd, Toby, and Maggie are all dead. Mike pleads with him to call the state police. Mike returns to Snow's office. He expresses his condolences for Maggie, but says it's Snow's fault that she's dead. Mike wants to know why Snow's dosing the townspeople.
All those books about hypoglycemia, hostility, aggression. I mean, what the hell were you trying to do to these poor people? Use them as guinea pigs to test your theories? It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. I mean, who's helping you? Why are you doing it?
They said my work was good for the country. They knew about my work.
They? Who is they?
They said my work could prove useful if war.
Will you listen to me? Who the hell are they?
We can't have war protesters. No peace movements. People will welcome war. It will be a release.
My God, you're mad. People are dead because of your experiments.
No, I can make them all normal again whenever.
You can't bring back the dead. You can't bring back Maggie.
Maggie. I shouldn't have let them use me. The project must be stopped. They'll do it again somewhere else.
Who?
Once they find a weakness, they won't give up.
But who are they? The government. They'll control us all someday.
The sheriff looks around the plant trying to find an unlocked door. Much to his surprise, he finds Papa Jack dead on the floor of the parking garage, death by bullet. Speaking of bullets, one nearly takes William's head off, piercing his cowboy hat. The agent and his buddy, Agent Junior, open fire on the sheriff, and he ducks behind a garage door. Mike arrives in his dune buggy and also takes fire. He runs into the garage with Williams and informs him that those fellas are government. Mike and Williams fouled up their experiment, and they ain't happy about it. Mike joins the firefight and shoots back at the agents. The state police arrive and aim their guns toward the wall that the agents are hiding behind. Williams tells the police that he wants the agents alive and to hold their fire. He orders the agents to toss their guns over the wall and come out with their hands up, and they oblige. Agent Senior looks toward the police, lowers his hands, and they all shift their guns toward Mike and the sheriff. He yells fire, and the cops murder our heroes, and the credits roll.
Boom!
Yeah.
Over. I love that ending.
Yeah.
Like, I love that ending.
That ending reminds me of American Werewolf in London.
Yeah.
How it's just like, at the ending, boom, credits.
Yeah, that's it. Done.
Yeah.
We got no more to say. And the thing that I love about it, too, is that I remember seeing this as a kid, and that being one of the first times that I saw a movie where I thought, oh, they don't all have happy endings.
Right.
That's
right.
crazy, you know? And if you look at the 1970s, of course, this is not an example of a hardcore political conspiracy movie. It's a little more out there. But, you know, you had the whole bunch of stuff, especially post-Watergate, government conspiracy theory type movies like Parallax View and, well, of course, All the President's Men. I mean, really, Pakula movies from the 1970s.
Yeah.
But, yeah, man, that was a great ending. And it leaves you with questions. It's like, okay, well, what happens to Liza? What happens to Lester?
Yeah.
Was somebody else in on it? What happens to Snow? What happens to the town?
Yeah.
Now that this has happened, does the government burn this town to the ground and start over somewhere else? Like, what happens?
Yeah.
None of that's answered. And I love that none of it's answered because then my imagination can go.
Right, right.
I know that we talk about the technical aspects and the story aspects of these movies. Beyond all that, when the drive-in movies affect me deeply, the reason they do is because there's a kernel of an idea that my imagination can latch onto and run with. And that's
absolutely.
This ending embodies that just completely.
I like a limbo ending like this sometimes too, you know? It's like you let you draw your own conclusions. It's like those two are dead. Surely they're going to kill Liza and Lester too because they know all the secrets.
Right. Especially Liza.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, if you think about it, there's no satisfactory way to button this up otherwise.
No.
Like, without it being a hokey ending, without it being too long, there are other ways you could end it, but this is the way to end it, I think.
Right. I found it really interesting that this movie is called Barracuda, and it has so little to do with the Barracudas in the movie.
Yeah.
They're almost an afterthought by halfway through the movie, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny on the title card, isn't it? Say, like, Barracuda, and then in parentheses, the Lucifer Project.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess if they had called it the Lucifer Project, people would have showed up expecting, like, the Devil's Reign or Race with the Devil or something like that. So
some sort of a cult movie.
Yeah, or like a Rosemary's Baby ripoff. Instead, they got if Alan J. Pakula had directed Jaws.
Yeah.
I really love this movie. I
did too. I want to watch it again in sequence because I watched half of it one night while I was scripting and the other half the night afterward. And I want to go back and watch it again, you know, in full so I can get the full experience from it. I mean, it was still fresh on my mind when I did the second half of it.
Right.
I was really interested to see where it was going to go, and it paid off.
Yeah, it pays off in a big way. I mean, you could get it on a DVD that's one of those drive-in DVDs where it's like that paired with this movie called Island Fury, which is another kind of cult classic that you can have the whole drive-in experience on the DVD. And I always advocate that, even if one of the movies is a dog. So
right.
But
I'd like to see Anchor Bay or Shout Factory pick this up and Maybe make a deluxe version of it and make a good print out of it.
God, man, I mean, I can't even imagine like a truly remastered print of that, because even what we saw, that underwater stuff looked great, like we were talking about earlier. I can't imagine if it were enhanced or remastered or cleaned up, rescanned. It'd look incredible,
With the great cinematography and that score, I mean, a remastered version would be something I'd want in my collection for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think the soundtrack is available on its own. That would be something that would really be nice to have too. But
it would be. Yeah.
It's a great movie. I'm just going to jump out in front of the truck here and call it a Rembrandt.
Absolutely.
So
you could remake it, but why? I mean, it's meant the way it is,
Yeah. If you remake it, especially if you do a modern remake of it. And we've talked about this before with other movies. It's kind of like, I think we talked about this with Horror High. Once you start updating something like this, then the science has to be better. And then that ripples out and this other thing changes, and that ripples out and this other thing changes. All this stuff starts to change. And then it's not really a remake anymore. It's kind of like we used the title and then we made this movie. So, I don't think it needs to be remade. That's probably more of a personal thing than anything, but I don't want to see this movie remade. I like it the way it is.
Me too.
So,
and I mean, if they did go back and make it period specific, if they did remake it, what would be the point? You've already got a movie made from this period.
Right, yeah.
And it's great the way it is. So
right.
Why bother?
Exactly. All right. Well.
All right.
This one's going out with a little bit of a whimper. I feel like I should bite the head off of a sardine or something to end this. Hey, but I will ask you, are you going to eat them beans? Because I would like this beans. If you're done with them,
Yeah, I guess you can have my beans.
Oh,
never do get to eat my full dinner, do I?
No.
Always somebody picking off my plate.
Social distancing can suck it. I want them beans.
Thank you for joining us at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show. We hope you enjoyed our double feature this evening. You can follow us on social media at the All Night Drive-In Picture Show page on Facebook or at All Night Drive-In on Twitter and Instagram. If you have questions, comments, or movie requests, you can send them to our email address at allnightdriveinpictureshow@gmail.com. Join us next week for another fantastic double feature, and until then, we appreciate your patronage. Don't forget to hang up your speaker, and please drive carefully on your way out.
The All Night Drive-In Picture Show is edited and produced by Markham Harvey. Our theme song is composed and performed by Lee Rosevere and edited by The Night Watch. Our head ticket taker is Stubbs Jorgensen. Our sign master is Jason Baldwin. Our snack bar manager is Lucy Slewfoot. Our animal wrangler is Gerard Mantooth. I'm your announcer, Lane Hewitt. I'm as Vero as a billy goat. This has been a Clown Business Coalition production. Good night, everyone.